in East Berlin, and they took the horse, the statue, and they brought that to West Berlin. Okay, and yeah, after the war, it was meant to be brought back after the war. But what happens? Remember I told you that the communists then blew up the palace, and the West Berliners said, if they blew up the palace, we're not going to send that statue back to the communists because they'll probably destroy it. Actually, they didn't destroy it. What they did is they made a copy of the horse and the king and put it on the pilloth again, right? And here they made a copy of the pilloth and put the horse on the pilloth again. So we got two statues of the same guy, which is half and half. So now we come to the story of the building of the Berlin Palace. Are you ready for this? Yeah. Okay, listen. Now, normally, right, in 1701, the guy that was actually running Prussia at the time, his name was Frederick Frederick III of Berlin and Brandenburg. The Great Kurfürst. The Great Kurfürst, Frederick III of Brandenburg and Berlin. That sounds like a pretty good title, don't you think so? Is that impressive? No, not for him it wasn't, because you see, he wanted to be what everybody else already was in Europe. He wanted to be a king, right? Now normally, you know, your father dies, he's the king, you become the king. That's the sort of thing. But this wasn't the case with him, right? Because he was a great Kurfürst. So what did he do? Well, he got himself a crown made, right? Right? We had a crown made, and then he put it on his head, and he crowned himself the King of Prussia. Just like that. How about that? But you see, doing that, what happens to his wife, who was a princess, and she becomes the what? Yes, yes, she becomes the queen. Now, as soon as she becomes queen, she gets out the book of the Queen of Book. Alright? Yeah? So, she looks into the Queenie book, which is a big book, big thick book with lots and lots of things all about queens. And on page 25, she finds that being a queen, she's entitled to a summer residence. So, of course, she goes to her husband, the king, and says, you know what, Frederick I of Prussia, I'm your queen, and I've looked in the book of Queenie things, and it says in there on page 25 that I'm entitled to a summer palace. So now you have to build me one. Now, he wasn't ready for that, was he? I mean, he didn't see that coming. So a bit of a shock to the system for poor old Frederick I. But you know, you've got to keep your, if you're king, you can't get out of this. He has to do it. So he does. So what he does is he builds her a palace. Now, the first palace is not what you just saw. The first palace is just the middle bit, but it doesn't have a tower and it doesn't have the two wings either. Right? So anyway, she moves in, and I told you she really falls in love with her palace. So she decides to have a few extensions done. Sound familiar, guys? So you see, she has the two wings built. But here's the sad part of the story. She never gets to see these two wings completed.